in the world, and sometimes those things mix together. But what up, Danny? I would love to. I've heard a little bit of your story over the years, personally, and you're usually the one on the other side doing the interviewing. So this is cool to see it the other way around. But tell us your story. Like, where are you from? Where'd you grow up, and how did you get to where you are today? Well,
Um,
first of all, introduce yourself.
yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Adelia Carrillo, and I am, I consider San Diego my home, but I'm born and raised, well, no, I'm born from the Bay Area. So my
Oh, okay.
family grew up in the Bay Area. My mom moved down to San Diego when I was really young. So San Diego honestly became home to me. Um, it's a interesting transition going back home because going up to the Bay is completely different. You can tell the difference between me and then my cousins in how we are and how we're raised, and they
Ah,
always make fun of me because I'm like,
hold on
yes.
just a second. Hold on just a second. Besides maybe the
uh
this there's the like the Southern California accent. Like, what are some of the differences?
I don't want to say it in a bad way, but they consider me like being Mexican, like I'm whitewashed.
Uh,
Like that's one of the
yeah.
things. Unfortunately, that happened.
Well, I'm only half, so I don't. I'm like fully washed. But actually, it's funny because growing up in a small town, and I'm only half, but there was a lot of, guys that were like full Mexican by background, but they'd never left California. They don't speak Spanish. You know what I mean? It was like I used to
Yeah,
go to
yeah.
Mexico. I don't speak perfect Spanish, but better than they did, and so it's always funny. I understand what people mean when they say that, but I don't think it's fair. It's like you can't help where you grew up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's still fair, it's I still cherish like traditions, and I always
Mhm.
took those things to heart, and I was able to
Yeah.
go up to see my family every summer. So I was able to experience a lot of the things they did.
So where were you born? What city?
Alameda,
No way.
Alameda
Crazy.
Hospital.
I was born
Yeah.
in Fremont.
Were you? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just down the
okay.
street. It's crazy. Alameda County. Alameda County.
Alameda County.
Awesome. So then, like elementary and high school and all that was in San Diego?
Yeah, everything was in San Diego. Like I said, just summertime, I would go up there until I was like a teenager, and then yeah, I don't know. Then I just did my own thing at that point.
So what part of San Diego? Because San Diego is a big city, but it's basically like four or five different cities within a city, right?
hmm So I grew up in East County.
Okay.
Yeah, so Rancho San Diego kind of area,
Hmm.
Spring Valley, yeah, around those areas.
East San Diego is very hot. I remember we did a when we were first launching the Emerald Cup brand of products back in the day. It's re-emerged and kind of rebranded recently, but when we first started back in like I don't know 2014, 2015, we were going like just dispensary to dispensary, just kind of talking to people. And there was a big difference between like East San Diego and La Jolla, right? Just as far
Oh
as
yeah,
not only the climate, but the type of dispensary we were at. Like
yeah,
one, one of the ones in East San Diego were like literally, like had to get like metal detector, go through the like buzzed in situation. And then the one in La Jolla was like a freaking dental office, like it was
yeah,
just like
exactly.
elevator music, waiting room, the whole night. I was like, oh my, this is so cliche, but it was what it
It's La
was.
Jolla. It was La
Yeah, it
Jolla. That's
really
right.
was like exactly what you think.
Exactly.
So how did you tell us about your career? What did you do after high school?
So I found myself in the consumer electronic industry. I was working for this company called Skinit, and basically we created skins for like electronic devices, basically. So it was
Okay.
customization,
Okay.
stickers, printing on demand, and I was working more on the B2B side. So we were working with like big companies like AudioVox, Universal Electronics, and building out campaigns with them to skin their devices for their customers or give like
Cool.
gift cards or campaigns like that. So
Cool.
it was cool. I thought that was going to be my kind of career and what I was going to focus in. And life has its way of doing things. And so um, I ended up going through some health issues, which I had to go into. I had an emergency surgery. I had then to go on this whole road of recovery, and the doctors give you, prescriptions, and
Yeah.
then they're like, well, now you need to walk and you need to do these things, but the prescriptions didn't help. I was always nauseous and dizzy and I couldn't. So,
Hmm.
my fiance suggested cannabis, and I admit this and I tell this to everyone because I was so naive. I smoked when I was in high school, but it was
Yeah.
for fun,
Right.
I had no idea the medical benefits at all. So it was kind of like, why? Like, what do you mean? I'm just going to get the munchies. Like, that's how naive I was. And because that's what it did to me. I
Be
would
all
laugh and
paranoid and get the munchies. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, but I tried it. I was like, what else? What other option do I really have? And I just wanted to get better. And um, it worked. And it just made me into a completely different human is what it did. Emotionally, physically, just
Wow.
everything, yeah, about it. It just made me see life in a different way. It healed me like from that, and even healed me from a personal aspect of things that I went through growing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot
Wow.
that came from it.
And um, how was your favorite way to like consume, or how would you apply the medicine, so to speak?
So in the beginning, I was trying all different areas, like trying, tinctures. I was
Hmm.
smoking joints. I was eating edibles. Over time, I've always found that like I love joints. That's just
Okay.
like my thing.
Okay.
Now I'm more like going towards tinctures and like beverages. Is now kind of the way I go, but it's also I'm at home now. There's a lot of people here, so I'm just kind of being mindful of
Yeah.
how I'm consuming too.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah,
And
at
where are
the end
you
of the
now? San
day,
Diego?
yeah, Escondido though, so North
Escondido.
County.
Okay. Okay. North County.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Nice. I know there's a few places in California, San Luis Obispo and San Diego, that call themselves North County, because anywhere
Yeah.
that's the northern part of the county can say that, but they're like specifically known that way because I actually went to a high school called North Monterey County. So we locally here, all of us from North Monterey County, we say North County. So it's funny, but
Yeah.
I know San Diego is kind of the main North County. Um,
Hmm.
how did you meet your fiance?
So I met him years ago through friends. We lost touch. Like we both were in relationships, and so we were just like, "Oh, he's cool." We were like cool, but then we both were
Yeah.
in relationships, so we
Yeah.
set like I don't know. It was like we were friends, and we're like, "Okay, cool, bye," kind of thing. A couple years later. Um, I reunited with him. He was opening up a hookah lounge. So it was one of his like second businesses. And I found out he was opening his hookah lounge. And so I messaged him, I think it was, and he's like, "Oh, come to our launch, check it
Man,
out."
those guys got the hookah game on lock.
Yeah,
Anything
they
to
do.
anything like smoking related is definitely, yeah. Especially in Southern California.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So I ended up going there, and honestly, like we joke and we're like I never left. Like it was
yeah,
it just kind of all clicked, and we went through quite a few life experiences and journeys throughout that since he ended up losing his business. I had the health issue. Um, then we transitioned to going into the cannabis industry. So quite a few,
yeah. And how
yeah.
long have you guys been together now?
Oh gosh, I'm probably gonna get it wrong, and he's gonna get mad. I'm gonna get in trouble.
It's usually the other way around.
I know it is usually. I'm so bad at the number, but I've always been like that. I think we're almost at 10 years. Yeah,
Almost at 10 years. Wow.
yeah, yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
It's
Hmm.
funny that they're saying like, it's kind of like if you're dating and you survive quarantine, get married. If you're married and you don't survive quarantine, get divorced. And then there's going to be all
Yeah.
these kids born, and it's there's all these jokes. I mean, obviously not to make light of a serious situation, but there's a the relationships are being tested at times like
Oh
this.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
on one hand, it's like some people are happy to have somebody. On the other hand, people are like, I need my space, and I don't have space.
Right?
So,
You're
uh,
definitely seeing the change.
yeah, for sure. It's an interesting time in that regard, for sure. So, talk about how you guys first got into the industry and transitioning from a kind of traditional, maybe startup in the tech space or in the communication space to the cannabis world, because at that time it wasn't totally mainstream yet, and Prop
Mhm.
64 hadn't passed yet. So you guys were
Mhm.
still, yeah, talking about the beginning of what was the name of your company before the yeah, yeah,
Direct Cannabis Network?
that
Yeah,
one. Yes,
DCN.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it first started with Ali going to events, and then so he actually started. A little bit about that. He lost his business. He ended up trying cannabis. So he really never got into cannabis when he was younger. It was funny because I admitted to him that I smoked in high school, and he kind of was like, ew, like, really? Like,
Oh no.
but then it turned around when that all happened, after his business lost, he tried cannabis, and it
Yeah.
really opened his mind. And then I went through my health issues, and he's the one that suggested it. And so around that time, we both just started, he started going to more events. I started just researching the plant. Like, I just wanted to learn about it. And I was looking at things I like, which is tech, entrepreneurship, and startups. And I didn't really find a community around that. And I also recognized that, you know, eventually the business type was going to come in, and I was like, this is an opportunity where I can actually help bridge it in a way
Yeah.
by, highlighting these entrepreneurs and highlighting the heart and their why they do what they do,
Yeah.
not just focusing on, what could come down the road. I just wanted to really kind of make that impact of giving voices to entrepreneurs that really have the passion behind this, because I felt that we can never lose sight of why this is happening, and it goes back to the plant.
Right.
So that's how I felt like that's really where my place was going to be able to
And
come and
when
help.
did you start DCN?
So DCN, the idea evolved around 2000, actually, so a little bit after. So 2015 was more about going out there and kind of really just
Yeah.
seeing what we could do, and honestly going into some of these events with like a video camera and a microphone, and
No,
people were like, who the hell are
I
you? Like,
remember. I
what?
remember following
Yeah.
you guys because when you first started, I happened to be living up at Area 101 with Tim and Chad.
Yeah.
So I was running the media for Emerald Cup. So I was very like aware of all the different outlets that were out there. And I saw you guys starting off, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then all of a sudden it was this thing. It was awesome. You guys definitely made those couple of years. You definitely accomplished a lot of cool things and had a lot of great guests because there wasn't a lot
Yeah.
of. I mean, there was some bigger media companies,
Yeah.
but not that we're covering it in a professional way. Obviously, High Times, they do their thing, and it kind of feeds into that stoner stereotype, right? They kind of celebrate that culture, and there's nothing wrong with that per se, but that's one aspect of it. I felt like you guys had a much more broad, kind of in-depth perspective than a lot of the other media companies out there, or it'd be an outside media company that like a Rolling Stone or National Geographic or
Yeah.
Discovery. Because I mean, it was crazy. The request that we would get to interview Tim was just like
Oh, I
insane. I'm
bet.
yeah, we had ABC News like in the house, so everybody's trimming, and it was just like, this is crazy, dude. We're just like national TV's just here on the farm. Like 2 years ago that we would have got rated, and now this is like just here we are on the nightly news, like literally the
Yeah.
ABC nightly news. Like, okay, cool. Like, I guess this is real life. you know.
Yeah, I guess this is but I
So
remember it was definitely interesting though, because you could tell that was a transition, I think, for a lot of people,
yeah,
especially even when you guys went through that. It's like, what?
yeah,
Like, this is,
yeah,
yeah, this is real life now?
yeah, yeah. And it was cool. But what I was for you guys, what I felt like you were doing, obviously you had your mission and your goal, which you accomplished, but you just it was a like organic, homegrown, like within the industry, you telling those stories as opposed to some of these major media companies that were coming in and just kind of, you know, because it was a hot buzzword at the time, kind of doing their story, or that's what I basically saw. That's why you guys were a breath of fresh air because like Green Flower, they were doing some cool stuff, but it was more like they were filming events and like talks,
Hmm.
more kind of like TED
Hmm.
Talks, like, and yeah, but it was I don't know. I just really liked what you guys were doing.
Thank
What
you.
are some of your favorite stories or guests from those days?
Oh gosh. I think out of the guests, I really just like doing the shows. So I really enjoyed all the different conversations. I was able to interview like Julian Marley, like people that I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Like Julian Marley, to know that I was, interviewing Bob Marley's brother. Like it was just one of those things that I was starstruck, and I don't get starstruck. I lived in
yeah,
LA for a little bit, so I like got
yeah,
to see celebrities, and I was like, whatever.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
somebody like that, I geek out about.
Right, right, right.
Um, but honestly, like every entrepreneur just had something in them that I I think I just love that. I love hearing and feeling the passion behind somebody's voice behind any business idea.
Yeah.
Like I could literally talk to people all day and just like just mastermind with them. They tell me something and I'm like, "Oh, you could do this." You I don't know, it's just
Hmm.
infectious, I guess you could say, just
For
talking to
sure.
them.
Well,
Yeah.
that's, I mean, and that's for me, like I've been behind the scenes on a lot of really cool projects, been fortunate for that. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to do my own thing. And I just never got around to it for different reasons. I mean, you know how it is. It's nerve-wracking when you first start. Even like to me, I don't have a problem being on camera. I'm not don't have a problem public speaking, but still when you start to put your own stuff out there, it's still nerve-wracking, right? You're like, what are people going to say? What are people going to think? And then for me, actually having some experience, I'm like, well, I don't have this gear, I don't have this, I need a producer, I need a light guy, I need a sound guy, you know. So it's like, what do I got now? I got my phone. What can we do? Now we're locked out. So I just was like, you know what? I was planning to start a podcast and blog in 2020 anyway. And then this just
Fun.
kind of forced my hand. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start doing these lives. Definitely not perfect, but of course, whenever you're trying to do a live, everyone's calling you, and then you're like trying to be. So it's not a perfect format, but it's been cool because I think a lot of people obviously are on social media right now, and obviously we can't really get together and film a series like or a segment like we normally would in the studio. But it's been cool to be able to bootstrap it, and I think a lot of the
Yeah.
cannabis stuff, especially too, or entrepreneurs in general, have really been able to use social media to their advantage and grow in ways that maybe in the past they wouldn't have been able to because there's not the gatekeepers of traditional media. So yeah, what are some things that you're seeing right now, just not just within cannabis, but in general, that you're seeing from women of color, from the cannabis industry, some of the groups that might have been marginalized in the past or not given access to traditional media that are now pioneering their own kind of story and their own tech? Like what kind of stuff are you seeing that you like?
Um, you know, I guess when it comes more to like being online kind of thing. Hmm. So
Well, do you watch TV or listen to the radio?
I listen. I know I watch Netflix. That's it. Yeah.
Well,
So
that's the yeah. It's not a regular traditional cable programming, right?
no, no,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, so it's really just seeing everybody, like so I actually had this conversation earlier today, and what I'm really like I'm enjoying seeing is, like you said, you got out here and now you're doing these
Yeah.
live interviews. It
Yeah.
is pushing people that either were thinking about it or
Hmm.
never thought about it, but are looking at, okay, this is my time to educate. This is my time to just
Sure.
do something different.
Right.
Um, I became friends with this chef in San Diego recently. Her name is Chef Jen, and
Nice.
she she was like, okay, what can I do? She was trying to figure out a way to really pivot because she can't do events. She can't go really to homes and cook for them. And
Yeah.
so now she like started this Facebook group and it's called the
Nice.
Quarantine Kitchen. And she just
Nice.
started posting her recipes
That's
and
awesome.
it's taking off. And now she's doing like a Patreon, creating content. And like
Nice.
she took this opportunity and
Yeah.
she's reaching people across the world even like there's people joining so it was
Yeah.
really cool to see that.
I think that obviously a lot of people are, affected by this, and obviously my heart goes out on the health side, on the financial side. Those are very serious situations that we're all walking into. Especially people in the event industry, obviously, are greatly affected by this, right? Which we both come from, and um, but at the same time, I will say, even though we've had kind of an unconventional, untraditional, non-traditional path, it's almost prepared us for stuff like this.
Yeah,
So
I
the
agree.
the next couple of weeks, the last few weeks that people have been, facing for the first time, like financial instability, just doubt or depression, that all normal things. Those of us
Yeah,
that have kind of been entrepreneurs or in cannabis or in media have already kind of been going through that. So not to say
exactly.
it can't still be challenging, but I'm kind of like, oh yeah, this is normal. Like I'm built for
Yeah.
this. You know what I mean? Like, oh, not knowing where your next check's coming from, been there. Like, you know not knowing where your next meal's coming from, been there. Sleeping in your car, been there. Like whatever, you know what I mean? Like we make it happen, and so that's why I think social media is important to stay connected, um,
Exactly, I
because not
agree.
everybody. There's a whole wave of people who haven't faced things like this before. I know you have. I know you've dealt with some challenges over the years, and how have those challenges, would you say, made you who you are today?
They have definitely, the first thing going into again how I became a cannabis patient, that first started off by making me just a completely different person. I don't want to say I was well, I was into materialistic things before, and it really opened my eyes to life and again, human connection and what was really important. So that alone was a very impactful moment. And then even through launching into the businesses that I've done with DCN and kind of going through the challenges with that, it pushed me to do things that I were uncomfortable in the sense of, going on stage and pitching to like 500 investors. Like I would have been like, who the hell's that girl? Like, that's not
Yeah.
me. Like, what?
Yeah. That's awesome.
um, even being on camera, like, I launched a media company. I loved doing that. I wanted to, but I also was terrified of being on camera. I'm like, they're going to look at me. They're going to judge me. How do I.
Yeah.
So in the beginning I would be scripted,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, no, you got to be yourself. You got to
Yeah.
just, they want to see that. They want to
Yeah.
see the authentic
For sure.
self. And, again, now I transitioned to being a part of Event High, and
Yeah. Tell
then
us
this
about
came
that. How did
along.
that come about, and tell us more about the company.
Yeah. Yeah. So, building a media company was very challenging. We kept it going for almost 5 years, and it was just by the end, I couldn't find a stable revenue model. I didn't want to be a
Yeah.
pay to play like media company.
Yeah.
And at that point, my heart wasn't 110%. And as a leader, as a founder, you can't do that to your team. You can't do that to yourself. It's like you have to be realistic. If you're not giving 110% at that point, you need to move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I loved it. It was still in my heart, but emotionally I was tired. And
Yeah.
so I pushed that company unfortunately to the side and um, was really, my partner, he is the founder, one of the founders of Event High.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
Oh, okay. All right. All
yeah.
right. All right.
So Ali, yeah, so he's one of the founders of Event High, and but I just it was easier to fathom the problem that they're solving. I think that was also a hard thing. Being a media company, I emotionally saw that we were solving a problem, but it
Right.
wasn't an actual tangible thing.
Right.
So it made it a little bit harder. Whereas I saw Event High solving a problem, it still aligned with my mission and values of connecting people together, this time through events.
Yeah.
And so the mission, the values just really, I was like, okay, if I'm going to go to another company, this makes sense. It makes sense. We were worried because now we're like, us two together, can we work together? Like,
Yeah. Right.
what will that
How's
do?
it been going being in
Uh,
quarantine? Is there a lot of HR complaints, harassment? No, I'm just kidding. I always joke because my friend Crystal just got on. She's also working from home with her husband too. And I always, every time I go over there, I always joke like, "How many HR complaints this week?" Right? Because anyway, anybody who works with their significant other, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. We're good. Yeah, we've the norm. I don't think it's more than the normal, I would say. So we're good.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Um, but but yeah, so I saw the opportunity. I was like, they were focused on growing on and connecting to the event organizers, and it was time for them to focus on growing to the audience. And I'm like, from a marketing aspect, I'm like, okay, I can help. This is where I can really come in.
Yeah.
So I jumped on in, and obviously we're still startups, so we all wear many hats.
So explain to
But
us like what it is in a nutshell.
so Event High is an online ticketing platform for the cannabis industry, similar to Eventbrite
Okay.
and Ticketmaster. But the
And
difference
why did
is,
it need to be created?
yes,
Talk
there
about
we
that.
go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, mainstream ticketing platforms actually will shut down cannabis events. They look at cannabis events as a prohibited merchant, a prohibited event, and a prohibited transaction because cannabis is Schedule One, so
Even
federally
in
illegal.
recreational states,
Yep,
because
because it
all
goes
those other
back.
companies are national
Mhm.
or
Because
international.
of their, well, because it goes back again to the merchant. So who are they using for their credit card processing? Who is
Right.
their banks? They don't
Nobody.
want to risk themselves for one industry when they're catering to
Right.
many industries. Um, and the reason that came along was, we were hosting B2B events in 2015 with DCN, and our events got shut down. We
Yeah.
went through that. We had a fight with Eventbrite. We had to
Yep.
took months to get our money back. And so at that point, he started looking at this problem, and he went on and started focusing on potentially building this idea. It took him about a year to find a bank because we wanted to be transparent. We didn't want to have a shell. We didn't want to
Hmm.
wake up one day and just be like, what if we just lost everybody's money? Like,
Yeah, it's all in the Cayman Islands somehow.
yeah, like so. We made sure that we went through that process and we found a bank. And we have what's called a marijuana related business bank
Is it
account.
a credit union or is it a local bank or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's we actually can publicly announce it because they spoke at the it was the I forgot what it was called, but it was with John Chang. He had the California Treasurer Group or something for
Okay.
cannabis.
Hmm.
They ended up speaking, so it's with Partner Colorado Credit Union.
Okay.
Partner Colorado Credit Union was doing a pilot program in California, and it was just timing. He was reaching out to all these banks. They kept saying no. They wanted to do a pilot program. Ali found out about it, reached out to the CEO, presented his company, um, and again, the
Awesome.
timing, it just
Awesome.
worked out.
Well, it's a
So
great
we,
idea and definitely needed. Keep going. Sorry.
yeah, no, 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 you're fine. So we ended up, we were able to find this bank account. We were able to, they connected us with their processors. And so we are now able to maintain this account, but it's a lot of work. We are learning bank talk. You
Yeah.
probably, yeah, it's a completely different miles there aspect in this sense. Like we're learning about SAR, suspicious activity reports, anti-money
Hmm.
laundering.
Yep.
We have to
Yep.
run due diligence on every event host, make sure they're not selling, because apparently people think if you could just be selling weed. Oh, this ticket is not a ticket, it's a pound of weed or whatever it may be. So we
Yeah.
have to check
Well,
everything.
the problem is for every good-hearted person like yourself who just wants to do right for the community, there are people who scam the system
Yeah, yeah,
and give everybody else a bad name. So that there's reasons why those rules are in place, right? And
yeah,
money laundering is a big issue in the industry,
yes,
let's be
yeah.
honest. And a lot of, and I'm not going to name companies or whatever, but let's just say that for a while under 215, um, people were really taking an advantage of the gray area in that
Mhm.
situation. And it was funny because I actually talked to Tim Blake on live last week. I talked to Danny Keith on live last week, and we were talking about some of the old days. And I was like, it'll be interesting to see how these lives go because for the most part, like my life is pretty diverse. I have quite a wide spectrum of friends and family from
Uh-huh.
around the world, from everything from coaching youth sports to growing up in church to being in the cannabis industry and all the interesting characters that come up with that. So now like in the financial real estate space. So I usually keep my page pretty PG-13,
Yeah.
but it's funny because all of a sudden Tim, I was just like, oh, let's tell the story. So he's like, yeah, and then we were doing this in the 80s with the crack and the da-da-da. I was like, whoa. And then the DEA. And Daddy was like, yeah, I used to run this many pounds down to LA. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're just incriminating ourselves.
Going
But
on, yeah.
I think the statute of limitations has passed enough already anyway, so it's all good. But, it's funny because when I was working for Emerald Cup back in the day, we had challenges not only with the event side and the banking side, but also the media side.
Mm,
So, like I said, outside media companies wanted to come and do stories, right? Like
mm,
Rolling Stone, I mean New York Times, whoever, all the
yeah,
big guys. But we had a really hard time with social media,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was funny because not so much Facebook, but Instagram blew up for the cannabis industry, right? Especially in California, right? All the growers, all the seed makers, all the different brands were just blowing up on Instagram, all the hash makers, everything. And
Hmm.
the problem is that they were doing it in a private sense, and then they would like, there was all this culture, all this shit talking, all this. I mean, it became this whole subculture within Instagram. Problem was, is Emerald, we were a public brand and we were a public event and we were trying to sell
Okay.
tickets.
Yep.
But we're a cannabis based event, but we couldn't even use that word.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're basically like a concert, we're a concert basically. And so for the longest time, we had to just, find ways around it and find ways to make it work. But it was always a challenge. I mean, we literally had major accounts of hundreds of thousands of followers get taken and never got back. And you know how much work it
That
goes
goes
into
in.
building,
Yeah.
social media. And so it was very frustrating. And then it'd be funny because all these people would like, want to talk shit. You guys are corporate. You guys are sellouts. I'm like, dude, you have no idea what we have to do to rob Peter to pay Paul, and what we have to do to be creative about paying taxes, and then also the banking. And it was this interesting tension, and I think you're part of that community as well, as you have people on this extreme side who are underground, will always be black market, will never come
Yeah.
off the mountain, will never show their face, right? Then you have this other group of people that have never got their hands dirty. They're all corporate. And it's
Yeah.
so funny. I give Chad North such a hard time because he's my boy. But the term in the industry now is the Chad, right? That comes in with like the
Yeah.
polo shirt, pop collar, like got daddy's money from Canada to invest, and become this whole like it's hilarious. And we give him
It
such a
is.
we give him such a hard time. Like, yeah, if you go to like, all the events in Vegas or whatever. But it's funny that there's the people that are kind of in the middle that are really do care about the plant, really are connected to it, care about the patients. Obviously, they've had to participate in the black market just to survive. They're also trying to participate in the emerging market
Yeah.
because they want to be sustainable and because they want to reach the most people. So it's this interesting. I mean, obviously,
Transition.
it's not that simple, but there's basically
Yeah.
those three groups, basically.
Yeah. Well,
And the
and
problem is
that's
that
a
people in the middle are having the hardest time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing too, because now we're also the industry is going, people are going against each other now. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, like it's like, especially the people in the middle, they're trying and people are still trying to bring them down because they're still trying, they're in that I'm trying to survive, but I'm also trying to I'm trying to
Right.
do this right. And then there's the people that are just like, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you're trying,
Right. Well, everybody
we're
has
gonna
an
still
opinion
call
that's
you
not
out.
not doing it, right? Everyone has an opinion. See, my friend
Yeah.
Billy says, is anyone teaching you how to use your profits to grow and become your own bank so you never have to worry about those issues? I think he's talking more so about like some financial concepts. The difficult thing with that is that some of you mixing funds, right? Especially depending on where they come from. So what's nice though now, so I'm still invested in some event projects and some media companies that aren't connected to the plant itself.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's where it gets tricky. So
Yeah.
see, there's some CBD stuff that's like gray area. There's some hemp stuff and some of the event media. So you can still be connected to the industry, but if you're actually selling a product that kind of puts you on a list that makes it challenging to do certain things, right? Crossing state lines, having, I don't know, what do you think about some of that stuff?
So they do. There's like I think there's three or four different tiers. I'm not an expert in the whole banking aspect of
Me
it.
neither. Yeah.
But the tier like two and tier three are more of your catering to this space, but again, you're not touching the plant. That does have a little bit more flexibility in certain
Right.
things. But again, now we're also seeing like let's look at this current time. We're hearing back and forth with these like small business loans.
Yeah.
Initially people are like, oh, maybe I'm ancillary, or I cater to this space, but I'm not like, let's say a tax accountant. They're not exclusively focusing on cannabis, but they have a
Right.
lot of cannabis clients. They're now semi in jeopardy of getting a small business loan. So,
Because it's federal
mhm.
grant. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's still
Mm.
that, like, again, I don't know. I don't think that answers his question. Um, but
Yeah.
that's something I think launching or funding your own bank, I think definitely has a lot of work. And again, I'm not
Well,
an expert, so I couldn't give the right advice, unfortunately.
I definitely respect the people that have survived and fought through this last couple of years because it's been crazy since legalization. It's There's been some positives, there's been some negatives. Obviously, there's been some infighting within the community. People have shown their true colors, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're only as good as your word. But at the same time, everybody was just in survival mode. So there's some people that I think just did what they had to do to survive, genuinely. Then there's other people
Yeah.
that were sellouts. There's other people that were showed their true colors. And like, it's not my place to say who's who and what's what, but I think the fruit speaks for itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I kind of saw the writing on the wall because I wouldn't say that I was a lifelong part of the community. I definitely was
Hmm.
fortunate to be like adopted in and part of it in a serious way, like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I also kind of saw the writing on the wall. It's like, I need to start to pivot away from this a little bit so that I have other options. Because as I was
Yeah.
looking at it, I'm like, there's some people that are involved in the industry because that's all they can do. And
Yeah.
for me, luckily, I've had some issues over my life, but at the end of the day, I had a clean record. I was able to get licensed. So I got some insurance licenses. I got some real estate licenses. And that's why I know about the anti-money laundering. I know about all that stuff. If I would have gotten a conviction or whatever, I wouldn't have been able to get those licenses. And I wouldn't have been able
Yeah.
to survive like I have the last couple years. So for me, I was like, well, I still have love for music. I still have love for the cannabis community. I'm going to be part of the community, but Lord knows we don't need another brand. Lord knows we don't need another vape pen. We don't need another flower company. We don't need another merch company. Like, and not to stifle anybody's creativity, but there's is this kind of like that wave kind of, if you weren't already on it, you kind of missed
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting to see. I think there's going to be some OGs that survive. I think there's going to be some new companies that come up.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be another couple years before we really see what the future is
Mhm.
going to hold. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I I think we are going to have that, that kind of what's I can't even think of the word, not a connoisseur, but that oh, what is it? Like the wineries, like those kind of
Yeah,
but
aficionado.
yes, yeah, I get, yeah. Is that the word?
Yeah,
I don't think that's the word. I'm drawing a blank. Anyways,
that's one
you're
of the
gonna
words.
go into the word.
Enthusiast, enthusiast.
Yeah, enthusiasts or these
Yeah,
growers that are very passionate about what they're doing, and those are the ones that,
like crafts.
into
Yeah, like
craft. There we go,
yeah,
craft.
yeah, yeah.
That's the word.
Uh,
Those are the kind of companies and brands that a majority of us are going to connect to. Then
right.
the mainstream are going to connect to these, what I call like the Walmarts or Targets that are coming
Or
out of here. They're not going
Bud
to know the
Light, or
difference.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
exactly. And that's fine. They're getting their hands on
Question: Who's the White Claw of cannabis? I'm
ooh.
just
No.
honestly, I was
Like
like,
that's a
dang
good
it.
one.
I'm sure there's somebody's coming out with a medicated White Claw as we speak. I haven't
Right?
seen it
Yeah.
yet, but I'm
Is
sure
that
it's coming
true?
out. I'm sure it's coming out. Have you had? It's not to get sidetracked, but have you had the hi-fi hops from Lagunitas and
I have
uh,
actually.
Absolute Extracts? So good. Yeah,
It really,
that with
yeah, I
tequila.
actually
Oh
enjoyed
man.
that. I haven't had that. I
You
haven't
got
had
to
that
come.
much
You and
tequila.
Ali got to come to Northern Nights, by the way, this summer. It's in July.
Yeah,
I think it might
that
be
would
the
be
first
awesome.
event of the year because all of spring was canceled. So I think those summer events are going to be double booked now. Yeah.
That's one thing I'm really like, it is so out of all of this, we're going to really, I think everybody was tired of events, especially in the cannabis industry. Everybody was like, oh God, another event. What am I going to go to? Why am I going to go?
Well, it started to
Now
get bad, and not that I
it
mean, I'm a
did.
little bit partial, but the Emerald Cup and everything else are very, very different. I think you know
Yeah,
that,
yes,
right?
yeah, I
So
agree.
obviously there's the corporate business networking ones, which are a dime a dozen. But even the other ones that were more like recreational or more of a party or a competition. I mean, I went, I'm not even gonna say the name, but I went to an event a few months ago or last year, and it was like it was sad. And I was like, you're
Yeah.
charging people to come to this and you're charging vendors for this? Like, come on. Like, that's just a cash grab. There's
Oh,
no heart put into it. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, and
And I
that's
know
the
how
thing.
much heart goes into putting on the cup.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, that's the thing. This day and age, people are going to events for experiences. That's what
Yeah.
they want. They're not just
Yeah.
going to, even if you are building a panel type speaker event, you can incorporate something different and unique that gives it again, this just awesome experience that people will want to come back and attend another event. But I think out of all of this, people are pivoting to online events and just online gatherings or communication through interviews like this
Tell
or
us about
they
you guys have one coming up.
yeah. So with this whole transition, we obviously were like, okay, we have to pivot as a company right now to survive. The first thing first was let's learn about online train our event hosts who use Event High. So that was the first component. Then on top of that, we already do give back events as a company. We don't normally host events, but we do community events, beach cleanups, holiday drives, fundraisers to just give back to our local community. And April was supposed to be a big one. We wanted all of our event hosts in every different state that we're in 37 states now, to do something good in their hometown on, on April 18th. Now we're not going to go behind and say, hey, everybody, let's get together April 18th in person.
Right.
That's a
Right.
horrible PR move.
Right.
Just not good to do. So we transitioned that idea and we're like, let's do something online, and it turned into High Day. So High Day
Yeah.
2020, it's this Saturday. It's
Awesome.
24 hours of back-to-back events hosted by different event hosts from around the world. So
Awesome.
we have a DJ from Switzerland. We have a mom from United Kingdom. We have a chef coming on. Just different events hour by hour to showcase the different experiences in cannabis,
That's awesome.
from education to dancing to food. Just again, kind of showing them what Event High is online.
That's awesome.
But the big mission behind it is to campaign to get people to stay inside. So as a community, we're trying to unite everyone to come join us on a Saturday and just hang out, smoke, chill, whatever, and see people that you either know somehow online or that you've met
Yeah.
before or that you just would want to learn from the comfort
Yeah.
of your home. Yeah.
What's the site? I'll type it in right here and pin it. How do people find it?
So they can go to www.eventhigh.io. And when they get to that's the main page for Event High, or the main website for Event High, you'll see it on the top. It's called High Day.
.com?
.io.
Oh, .io. Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Is that right?
There we go. Yep, perfect.
Okay, cool. We'll pin that. Awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys doing that. I think it's going to be awesome. I think Emerald Cup's joining up with National Cannabis Industry to do something on actual 420 as well. I saw a
Oh,
funny,
good.
a funny meme. I don't know if you saw it, but that's the one thing keeping us all going is all the funny memes and TikToks that are happening right
Yeah.
now. Uh, but it said something like, because this year, 2020, like every major holiday is on a weekend, right? Like Cinco de Mayo's on Taco
Yeah.
Tuesday. 420 is a whole month, right? So I saw this one where it was like, oh, stoners are thinking, man, 420 is a whole month this year. How am I going to stay home from work? And look, here we go.
And
So
now we
now
got it.
like, you get all the 420 off. Like you can look at it
Yeah,
as depressing, or you could celebrate the fact that you got 420 off.
exactly. Well, so I was thinking about that the other day because I was like, you know how many people are probably going to now experiment and try cannabis because they don't have to go to work. Well, I know it's a horrible thing, but if they don't
Yeah,
have work right now, they can now maybe it'll give them that opportunity to medicate with cannabis instead of
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know. I look at it, who knows what could be happening, but I think
yeah.
there's some new medicinal users or even just recreational users.
Yeah, fuck it. Why not?
Yeah, yeah.
I tried everything else. The world's ending. Might as well get high. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not even a huge, consumer myself, but I definitely, for me, I think what you went through, where you saw the transformation in your own body, your own personality, and that
Mm,
was all the confirmation that you needed. For me personally, I didn't experience that as drastically from a medical
mhm,
perspective. It
mhm,
was more watching people around me, so friends like you, and hearing that
mhm,
story of the elderly and seeing children who have epilepsy, um, you know, and how cannabis helps them with what they're dealing with. When I started to see that and hear those stories and meet those people in person and literally like see a child, that needed that changed everything for me. I'm like, growing up, obviously it was considered, it was just different. The culture was different. It was like a bad thing. It was like, oh, it's drugs, oh it's gangs, oh it's violence, and there was definitely some of that for sure. It wasn't medicine, it wasn't cannabis, it wasn't positive, it was weed, and it was like it was on some gangster shit, you know what I mean? So, or it was on some hippie shit. uh, but to see that evolution, it's funny because I think there for a while there's people that are very authentic about it. There's people that are not
yeah.
authentic about it, right? I'm all about the plan. I'm all about the patients. Shut up, bro. You're just over here in the black market, like moving weight. Like you don't care about nobody but you, like making money so you can drive a lifted truck like an idiot. Uh, so on one hand, there's people that genuinely, pour their heart and soul into their farms, went through the
Yep.
process, got the
Yep.
permits, and those folks, some of them are thriving, some of them are struggling. My heart goes out to those folks, and I do believe that like the people in the triangle are going to survive because of that heritage, because of that quality. I mean, this is different up there, man. In Humboldt,
Yeah.
Mendo, and I don't really go to Trinity really ever, but Humboldt, Mendo, I spent a lot of time in Sonoma County. It's just different. The culture is different. The quality is different. It's just, and so I do think that there'll always be a market for that. But I
Yeah.
also know that there's a lot of people that are not going to survive, but they should have planned ahead. They were killing it under 215, right? However they were doing that, they were doing that. And so I don't feel as bad for some of the people that maybe didn't prepare for this,
Hmm.
but I do feel bad for the people that tried to do things the right way, that do care about the planet, that do care about the patients, and still they're kind of struggling to survive. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of those initial companies that came in with investors and their funding and their projections are falling on their face, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Left and right.
Unfortunately, I think again, those are the ones that came in using that term, green
Right,
rush. Like that's,
right.
I hate that word, I hate that term, but they came in thinking money was going to
Yeah,
get them through this. They weren't ready for what what a lot of these, like the OGs went through. They don't know any of that. They were not ready. They just thought money was going to be able to help solve
right,
all the problems. They were going to
right.
come in, and I've heard this multiple times from those kind of companies that we're going to show you guys how to do business. And I'm just like, oh no, you're going to
Well,
get a rude awakening.
yeah. So on one hand, they got a rude awakening. On the other hand, I do agree to an extent because there was a lot of people in the industry that got into cannabis media or got into cannabis events because they were just from cannabis, not because they have any business being in media or being in events. So there
Mhm.
was a lack of professionalism because a lot of people never even considered a job in cannabis because it was illegal because of the stigma. So once all of a sudden you start to get some of these like serious scientists and serious business people and serious media people, yeah, were there
Yeah,
sharks? Absolutely. And like
yeah,
fuck those people. But were there some really quality, high level people that maybe would have engineers that would have never considered a career that are now
yeah,
getting into it? All of a sudden you get real people from the military or from the business sector, or from the
for
science
sure.
sector, and it's like, oh wow, this is what a real business should look like. And this is, I mean, some
Hmm.
of the farms,
The validation that comes from it now because of
yeah.
those
So
individuals.
for
Yeah, that's
sure,
a good point, a huge point.
for sure. How obviously, events have been canceled, but personally, like how what are you seeing? How are things going for you guys dealing with the coronavirus and the shelter in place and all that kind of stuff?
So, first things first, as a company a few weeks ago, it just felt like we just kept getting knocked down, like one punch after another.
Yeah,
Again, seeing this in 37 states of seeing event hosts one after another cancel, postpone. Now, then we're over here like refunding, trying to work with these event hosts to figure out if they're going to reschedule. What do these dates look
yeah,
like?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so first was like, can we survive this? How can we survive this? What can we do? And for me as a person, I've noticed high stress situations. I'm always like, I don't feel. I'm always like, okay, solution. Let's go to what can we do? How are we going to do this? Let's go, go, go.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that instinct kicked in. So the past three weeks, almost 4 weeks, it's just been, let's survive. Let's figure this out. Let's pivot.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
positive vibes. Keep going. And yesterday, I finally, I
yeah.
think
I
it all
saw
came
that.
crashing. Yeah, it was a finally of a reality of all the emotions that I was maybe avoiding or holding back, and
Yeah,
just one little thing, and it just like all came crashing
yeah,
down, and I just cried and felt all of it.
yeah. It's a lot,
So,
man. It's a lot, and my heart does go out
yeah,
to everybody right now. Obviously, the health uncertainty, the financial uncertainty, and I'm doing whatever I can to help people. And if people have any questions, I just, I'm kind of involved in the community, so I'm a little bit maybe more aware of some of the resources that are out there, and was able to make the pivot from the event space. I still obviously love events and music. That's my first love, and that's I'll always be connected. But I saw the writing on the wall 3 or 4 years ago. I was like, I got to make a pivot now, because when everyone was when basically I've heard, if Warren Buffett confirms that, he says when people are being greedy, be fearful. And when people are being fearful, be greedy. And
huh,
as weird as that sounds, that's more investment advice. But
okay,
to me, what that means is like, if everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, that's probably when you should jump off.
huh,
And so when you talk
interesting.
about the green rush happening, I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know what? I'm going to exit stage left. Obviously, I've earned my stripes. I've earned my place in the communities, and I'll always
Mhm.
give and always be connected. And I literally almost invested everything I had in a couple of big projects. I was able to invest in some smaller like media companies and some projects which are longer term, but I was going to go into some
Okay.
farms, go into some brands. I was like, oh yeah, I got caught up in it too. Like, oh, I know so and so. It'll be like no problem.
Putting it all
You know what I mean?
together.
Money grows
Yeah.
on trees. Dun, 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 it does. And luckily, I just, the older I get, the more I learn to trust those instincts. And
Mhm.
we've all faced disappointment and handle it in different ways, but I was able to kind of just like take a step back. And it was hard because, and I'm sure you felt this way too, when you see it moving forward without you, something that you helped build, it's hard. It hurts your
Yeah.
ego. It hurts your pride. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
something you were known for, your baby, your identity, the community. All of a sudden, you see people's true colors and people that you thought were your friends and maybe not your friends, and or people that just used you to get to their next place. I mean, all that shit's real.
Oh yeah,
And for
definitely.
me, I thought about, oh, maybe we should have like a nice little fluff. Like, I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna keep it real. Like, there's enough fakeness out there. Like, now is not a time to be fake. Now's the time to keep it real.
No,
And
exactly.
for me, like, I love you guys. We've always vibed, and I remember like we were friends from a distance. Like, oh, good to see you around, whatever.
Yeah, right?
And then I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, you guys came to the Cup, and I was like, and you were like, well, we have this interview to do. We have to work a little bit. And I was like, do you want to come with me? And then it
Yeah.
was like, those are
Yeah.
those are my friends. Like every once in a while, and I don't do that for everybody. But every once in a while, I was like, all right, these guys are cool. Feel like they need to just have a good time, and then we can all,
We do
and
it.
um,
Yeah.
and the people that go through those times together. And for me, why I learned to love the Cup, because I used to go more just on the music side. I was more interested on like putting on the event, and that was my background. But when I lived up there and I went through a couple full seasons of the farms
Yeah.
and the community and fighting for legalization and being at the city hall every night of the week till midnight and then getting up early and being there for the harvest and doing like seeing the whole thing and then showing up at the Cup with everybody,
That
I
has been
gained a whole new
amazing.
appreciation because it was like, oh my God, we survived another year. And yeah,
Yeah.
just like any family, sometimes we fight amongst each other. Sometimes we have to work out our differences, but at the end of the day, we're a family and we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all just trying to survive. We're all just trying to help people.
And you
And so,
experienced that, like
yeah,
even like when we were able to first start going to Emerald Cup, like I was just like, oh my gosh, like
yeah,
this is what I was missing. Like this is like just
yeah,
seeing, I don't know, the feelings and the people you converse with and how everybody
yeah,
treats each other is just a really cool experience. And then the music on
yeah,
top of it. Yeah,
yeah. It's
it's
fun, right?
cool.
So,
Yeah.
all the details aren't out yet, but there is going to be a Southern California event coming.
That's
Hopefully, I
good.
don't know if it's 2020 or 2021, but hopefully it'll come soon. So we'll definitely have you guys involved in that in one way or another.
Yeah.
And we definitely got to hang out soon and catch up
Yes.
more. Last thing I'll say, and I thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
What are some thoughts or some short-term goals or some hope that you have? Obviously, it's been a tough couple weeks. It's been a tough couple days, and I encourage you and I encourage other people, like, don't necessarily always run from that, right? I'm the same way. Busy, busy,
Yeah.
busy, busy. And then right around the time that I kind of stepped down from the Cup and doing all those other things, like my mom passed away, like other friends passed away, like I lost out on some business situations. I was broke financially, broke mentally. All of a sudden, I was the same person, always keeping it together, always busy, always on to the next project, always fine. And then all of a sudden, I just couldn't anymore, and it hit me. So
Mhm.
what you had yesterday in a day, I had for like 2 years. No, and so just in So just in the last like year, I'd say I'm finally like digging myself out of that, and I just have a newfound humility and a newfound appreciation for my real friends
Yeah.
and for the
Yeah.
opportunity too. Like I think for us, we have so much respect. We just want to work with everybody, and then you start
Yep.
to. They say sometimes don't meet your heroes, right? Because sometimes you end up seeing people's true colors, and you get really disappointed. Well, for me, I've been disappointed, but at the end of the day, it's okay. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, I think it's people like yourself, people like Ali, people like myself, that Danny, Chad, everybody, the crew, we can keep together, support each other, and like we don't have to ask
Mhm.
permission anymore. Like you
No.
know what
Yeah.
you want to do, go do it.
Yeah.
The resources are going to
Yeah.
be there. Don't wait for the law to change. Don't wait for the industry to accept you. Like go for it, execute on it, and there's going to be an audience, and there's going to be opportunity. And
Yeah.
anyway, that's what I believe. So I believe in you guys. I know you're going to get through this. I know we're all going to get through this. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're going
No,
to
it's
have
gonna
to
be good.
celebrate when the time is right.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really what it is. I think out of all of this, what I'm looking forward to, and again, I think this is like the little optimistic person in me, is I feel that as a whole, as humans, this was almost necessary because after this, we are now not thinking of, oh, this is my hometown. Like this is like it's now our world globally. We are
Yeah,
now going to be
yeah,
connected because we just all are facing something that everybody around the world is facing. It's not just between like a war in these two countries and where, oh, we
right,
hear about it. No, we
right.
are all living, eating, breathing the same thing that's happening in every other country. And so it's a horrible thing that we are going through, but I feel the long outcome out of this is humanity as a whole. We are going to be on closer vibrations than we ever were before. And so that's
Yeah.
my hope, my bigger picture.
Yeah.
I know that's not necessarily for me personally or the company that, or Event High, but that's just
Yeah.
as a beauty of what is going to happen from this.
Well, that's what I've realized, honestly. Like, I love your company. I love your brand. It doesn't matter. You are the brand. You are the company. You know what I mean? It may succeed. It may not. You may start another one. The issue is not what you start or what you call it. It's you. And that's what I realized for myself. I'm the brand. I'm the business. I'm the, and we together we are the community. So that's what matters at
Yeah,
the end of the day.
yeah,
We're going to start and finish companies and sell companies and whatever. Like,
exactly.
the individual companies aren't what matter. It's the community
Yeah,
that we build through it. So, and I think a lot of
exactly.
people have enjoyed this conversation. So thank you so much for your time. Tell
Yeah,
your
thank
tell your
you.
guy hello for me, and we'll see you
I
guys
will
on
see you
Event
very
High
soon.
Day. What is it? Saturday, right?
High Day, Saturday.
High
Yes,
Day. All
April
right.
11th.
We'll see
Yes.
you there.
See
See
you
you on High
guys
Day.
soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye.